It was a normal Wednesday morning. The sun was shining over the busy city of Baku, Azerbaijan. The streets were bustling with people heading to work, children going to school, and vendors setting up their stalls. The city was alive with the hum of daily life. At Heydar Aliyev International Airport, people were saying goodbye to family and friends, some with tears in their eyes, others with smiles and laughter. The terminal was filled with a mix of emotions as loved ones embraced and parted ways. Excited travelers were starting their trips, and the sound of planes filled the air. The airport was a hive of activity, with announcements echoing through the halls and the constant movement of people and luggage. Azerbaijan Airlines Flight 8432 was getting ready for its regular flight to Grozny, Russia. The crew was busy with final preparations, ensuring everything was in order for a smooth journey. It carried families going home, business travelers and tourists. Each passenger had their own story, their own reason for being on that flight. Some were eager to reach their destination, while others were simply enjoying the journey. No one knew that something terrible was about to happen, something that would be remembered in aviation history. The plane took off smoothly, climbing into the clear blue sky. As Flight 8432 went up into the sky, the passengers sat down, not knowing about the danger ahead. Some looked out the windows, admiring the view, while others settled in for a nap or read a book. The crew, experienced and calm, did their checks, their voices reassuring over the intercom. They communicated with air traffic control, making sure everything was on track for a safe flight. The beginning of the flight was normal, the plane a small dot in the big sky. The passengers relaxed, unaware of the impending crisis. But then, out of nowhere, something terrible happened. A sudden flash of light, a violent shake, and the calm was shattered. The passengers and crew were thrown into chaos as the plane struggled to stay in the air. High above the ground, a group of birds flew by, dark against the bright sky. They soared gracefully, their wings cutting through the air with ease. It was a sight of freedom and beauty, a stark contrast to the chaos that was about to unfold. Pilots see this all the time. Birds flying near their planes are a common sight, but this time, it was different. The pilots exchanged worried glances, sensing that something was amiss. The birds, scared by the plane, flew right into Flight 8432. They were disoriented and panicked, unable to avoid the massive aircraft in their path. A loud bang went through the cabin as the birds hit the engine, and the plane shook hard. The impact was sudden and violent, sending shockwaves through the entire aircraft. Passengers held on tight, scared as the plane shook. Their faces were pale, eyes wide with fear. Some clutched their seats while others whispered prayers, hoping for a miracle. Loud, scary noises replaced the quiet hum of the engines. The once calm and serene cabin was now filled with the sounds of panic and distress. In the cockpit, everything went wrong. Warning lights flashed red. Alarms blared, adding to the chaos. The pilots were frantically trying to assess the situation. The pilots, worried, tried to keep control of the plane. Their hands gripped the controls tightly, knuckles white with tension. They knew they had to act fast to prevent a disaster. The engine was badly damaged and the plane started to fall. Smoke billowed from the engine and the aircraft began to lose altitude rapidly. The captain's voice came over the intercom, trying to calm everyone down, but it didn't work. His words were steady, but the fear in his voice was unmistakable. They had to land the plane right away. There was no time to waste. The ground was approaching fast, and they needed to find a safe place to land. As the ground got closer, the passengers braced themselves. They held onto their seats, preparing for the impact. The tension was palpable, and every second felt like an eternity. The plane, like a hurt bird, fell towards the earth. It was a terrifying descent, and everyone on board could feel the gravity of the situation. The seconds felt like hours as everyone held their breath. Time seemed to stand still, and all they could do was hope and pray for a safe landing. Planes usually survive bird strikes. Pilots are trained for this. But the birds hit Flight 8432 very hard. Something else made things worse. GPS jamming. The birds damaged the engine and might have messed up the plane's navigation. Reports say strong GPS jamming might have affected the plane's ADS-B data, making things even worse. If this is true, the pilots would have had a hard time knowing where they were, making the emergency landing even harder. The pilots of Flight 8432 were in a dire situation, desperately trying to find a safe place to land amidst the chaos. The engine wasn't working, the plane was falling fast, and the GPS might have been jammed. The instruments in the cockpit were malfunctioning, adding to the pilot's stress. They didn't have much time. Every second counted as they made quick decisions, trying to navigate through the emergency. Strong winds made it even harder to land. The turbulence was intense, shaking the plane violently and making control nearly impossible. People on the ground watched in horror as the plane with smoke and flames tried to land. The sight was terrifying, and many feared the worst. One person said, "It was like a nightmare. We couldn't believe what we were seeing. The plane was too low, too fast, it was descending at an alarming rate, and everyone knew a crash was imminent." "I knew it was going to be bad," said another witness, their voice trembling with fear and anticipation. Even though the pilots tried their best, the plane crashed. A huge fireball erupted, lighting up the sky and sending shockwaves through the area. The ground shook for miles. The impact was so powerful that it registered as seismic activity, felt far and wide. For the people on Flight 8432, everything had changed. The survivors were left to pick up the pieces, forever marked by the tragedy. When the smoke went away, you could see how bad it was. The plane was a mess of metal and fire. Emergency workers rushed to help. Some passengers, somehow not hurt, walked out of the plane, shocked. Others, hurt but alive, called for help. But many people died. Families waiting for their loved ones heard terrible news. The crash of Flight 8432 showed how precious life is. It was a sad event that affected people everywhere. News of the crash spread quickly online. Pictures and videos of the burning plane were everywhere. People posted messages of sadness, prayers, and thanks to the rescuers. Azerbaijan Airlines changed their social media pictures to black. Leaders from Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, and other countries sent their condolences and offered help. President Ilham Aliyev of Azerbaijan ordered an investigation and declared a national day of mourning. After the tragedy, everyone wanted to know what happened. Experts from Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, and the company that made the plane started to investigate. They will look at the black boxes which record what happens on a flight. They will also look at air traffic control recordings, weather information, and the plane's maintenance records. They will also look into the GPS jamming, which might have been a problem. Finding out what caused the jamming and how it affected the plane is important. Everyone is waiting for answers. The investigation will help the families and teach the aviation industry important lessons so this doesn't happen again.